In this slide, we are going to see the major themes of this poem Kubla Khan, and this is also the last video of this poem. On this poem, see, imagination and creativity is one of the major theme of this poem Kubla Khan. See how imagination and creativity is presented or combined in this poem. As a romantic poet, Coleridge placed a strong emphasis on the power of imagination. The poem reveals that the speaker has been imagining what the palace of Xanadu would look like. This makes him recall an experience he had, and he wonders if his imagination could ever do it justice in describing. Time doesn't function in a linear way in the poem, as the speaker jumps back and forth in time. The image of the dome seems to be shaped by imagination rather than reality. It's sunny but filled with caves of ice. Coleridge also seems fascinated by how imagination influences people to create things and the difficulty therein. Kubla Khan is able to create a fantastical palace with a mere decree, and the Abyssinian damsel is able to conjure up the most beautiful song. The speaker, however, struggles to recreate his vision in words, and he looks to both Khan and the damsel for answer. So, imagination and creativity is one of the major themes in this poem. As we have seen, the whole poem is the imagination, because poet was reading a book about Xanadu, and he slept, and in that sleeping he saw the dream, and that dream he has presented in the poem, so that this poem is not a reality, it is an imagination, but that imagination becomes a creativity, a good creativity. And what we can say, he has presented primary imagination, secondary imagination, that concept and fancy, so all these things he has used and make a creative art, creative work in this poem. So imagination and creativity is one of the great feature or of this, or one of the great themes of this poem. See, the second theme of this poem is dreams and reality. As we know, the whole poem is a dream, so we cannot observe reality there. There are so many instances, there are so many examples that we can show, that we can present here to show the difference between reality, no, to show how this poem is a dream and not an reality. But one thing we should remember, what is reality? This poem is based on historical events, that is a reality. See, Kubla Khan drifts back and forth from real historical facts to the dreams of the speaker. Coleridge claimed the lines for the poem came to him in a dream after he fell asleep while reading about Xanadu. Xanadu is a historical palace we can say. And he was reading about Xanadu, and then he dreamed. So this poem is not a reality, but still reality is there, because he was reading that book, historical book. The Romanticists place great emphasis on dreams as a key to truth, and therefore it's not unusual that Coleridge would so deftly maneuver from dreams to reality within his poem without necessarily plugging the reader into those shifts. According to Coleridge's account, he was interrupted before he could finish writing all the lines he dreamed, and when he attempted to recreate them later, they had faded from his subconscious. Significantly, the speaker of the poem also laments his inability to conjure up the precise music played by the Abyssinian maid he saw in a vision. For he feels that if only he were able to do so, it could spark something profound in his readers. This seems to be a thematic commentary on the fleeting nature of the truth contained in dreams and the impossibility of recalling them accurately. In the same way, Coleridge seems to say it is impossible to capture something so precise in poetry which feels like a dream. So, in this poem, dreams is presented that is not a reality, but also poet have used that contradictory words or phrases to present his ideas. This is also a reality because according to him, through the dreams truth comes. So truth means a reality. So dreams and reality is also one of the major theme of this poem. The next theme of this poem is the impact of nature. The impact of nature on the imagination and the creation of art was important to Coleridge. For the romantics, poetry was often a vehicle to describe the sublime beauty of the natural world, from its pleasing greenery to its terrifying abyss. Although Kubla Khan covers a lot of historical ground, it also focuses heavily on nature. Coleridge starts out by describing the natural environment surrounding Xanadu. He turns the reader's focus to the deep romantic chasm from which water flows and even links the river to the ancestral voices Kubla Khan hears professing war. For Coleridge, nature wasn't all sunny skies and clouds, and it is not necessarily depicted as a benevolent force. Although nature appears tranquil within Xanadu, under the surface it is seething and violent. Coleridge goes to great lengths to describe the chasm, fountain, and sea as dangerous, unpredictable, and inducing in a terrifying way. He goes so far as to ascribe human emotions to its impact. The fountain is engaged in his less turmoil, seething and breathing. The effect of this is to show the reader that nature can have a profound impact on both the real world and the imaginative world. The real world and the imaginative world. So, the impact of nature is one of the major theme of this poem. Now we are going to move towards the symbol used by the poet in this poem. The first symbol used by the poet in this poem is the dome. The speaker seems fascinated by the symbol of Kubla Khan's pleasure dome and repeats the imagery at different points throughout the poem. The dome can be seen as symbolizing the act of creating a poem itself. After seeing the beautiful dome and being awed by it, the speaker yearns and strives to create something as memorable, lasting, and striking as the dome in air to make the reader marvel. If the Abyssinian maid serves as the muse of the poem, the dome in air is the aim of poetic creativity itself. So the dome is one of the great symbols used by the poet in this poem to represent the creativity, to represent the poem. Abyssinian maid is the second symbol in this poem. The Abyssinian maid and her song seem to symbolize that which is impossible to capture and render in a work of art. All poets, Coleridge may be saying, yearn to accurately depict images, sensations, and memories in precise language. If only the speaker could recreate and commit to writing precisely how this song sounded, he would be able to produce something as fantastical, unlikely, and awe-inspiring as a sunny dome filled with caves of ice. In producing such a thing, he would also be regarded as godlike, depicted in the poem as having flashing eyes and floating hair. He would therefore be able to instill a holy dread in his audience. Yet, there is also a recognition that most poets and artists, and therefore Coleridge himself are unable to accurately depict the magic they witness. In this light, the poem can be seen as being about poetic inspiration itself, and the maid may serve as the muse of the poem. She calls to the speaker to conjure up the best poem he can and urges him to create something memorably potent. The end. Thank you.